The crisis in Fukushima continues. Over the weekend, the crippled Japanese nuclear plant spewed even more highly radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean, roughly 45,000 liters in all. According to a French nuclear research institute, since the Fukushima nuclear crisis began in March, that plant has leaked more radioactive material into the ocean than has ever happened before in the history of the planet. Not only that, the architect of Reactor 3 at Fukushima spoke out recently criticizing TEPCO, saying the company's explanations don't make sense. And he claims that more than 8 months since an earthquake and tsunami triggered this crisis, it's inevitable that nuclear fuel has leaked into the groundwater, meaning the China syndrome is officially upon us, or could be. He also warned that if underground water gets overheated, it could trigger a hydrovolcanic explosion. So what's that, and what does this all mean? For an update on Fukushima, I'm joined by Paul Gunter. Paul, welcome back from BeyondNuclear.org.
Absolutely.
And pleased to have you with us. Based on what the former architect of Reactor 3 said, have we officially reached the China syndrome stage or the edge of it at Fukushima?
Right. Well, these are clear warnings that the accident is still ongoing now, nearly 9 months into this, since the earthquake and the tsunami. But, you know, I think that the former president of Saga University, this information is also corroborated by an earlier report in September where an assistant professor at the Kyoto University Research Reactor Institute said that units 1 and 3 had already had a melt through, and that by his projection the corium had moved as much as 10, 12 meters into the ground already.
This is, so, the corium is basically kind of white-hot melted
it's like
core.
Magma. It's like volcanic lava, but it's highly radioactive fuel and steel, and it's burning down. And even Tokyo Electric Power Company, in its computer simulation, because let's be clear, nobody can get into these reactors to actually see what's going on. These are all simulations,
it's deadly
projections.
Radiation levels.
Absolutely, it's killer right there. But the TEPCO has admitted that by their latest simulation, the corium has burned through 2/3 of the floor of the reactor. So it's melted. It's the reactor 1, they say, has 85 to 100% of the core melted away, burned through the bottom of the reactor vessel, fell to the concrete floor, and now is burned through over 2 feet of concrete, according to TEPCO. Now,
and they've always been a little conservative, shall we say?
Well, let's say that I think it's honest to say that TEPCO's credibility is less than 0 right now.
Yeah. So you know, we had a core meltdown at Chernobyl, and correct me if I'm wrong on that. And there was a massive molten white-hot corium, you know, this melted core material that could have sunk into the earth. How did they stop that at Chernobyl, and how might they be able to replicate that, or might they not be able to replicate that in Fukushima?
Well,
to prevent the explosion.
Right.
You know,
at Chernobyl, what they did is they dropped tremendous amounts of lead and graphite and sand, and the situation at Fukushima is different because you can't airdrop all that radioactive, you know, that cover, right, because these fuel pools above the core are still filled with huge amounts of radioactivity and reactor used fuel, spent fuels it's called. So they can't really bomb this corium as they did at Chernobyl from the air. And it's largely inaccessible right now, both in terms of mitigation and in terms of being able to actually assess what the level of the accident is. Nobody really knows right now for units 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Amazing, amazing. How do they, you know, so, you know, and they were actually, didn't they dig a tunnel underneath Chernobyl as well? And,
they did.
And kind of basically a stop point for it, filled with liquid nitrogen or something. They can't do that, I'm assuming, at Fukushima because the water table has to be so close. What happens when that corium hits the water table?
Well, this is a big concern because, you know, I think that if we think of this as like a volcano, only with magma or lava, you're thinking about radioactive material, red hot radioactive material melting down. Once it hits this groundwater source, the concern is that there will be this large steam generation, and then simultaneously, if it's hot enough, it'll make hydrogen gas, oxygen, becomes a very explosive and pressurized environment.
So it goes off like a volcano, basically.
And it just blows right out. That's what the former president of the Sega University is calling.
And that could happen anytime to any one
you know,
of these three reactors.
we're keeping our fingers crossed. But I think right now it's all pins and needles.
There's nothing
we
to
don't
stop
we
it.
don't really know. And the real issue is the just unmeasurable uncertainty, because nobody can get in there and see what's going on.
So I bought a Geiger counter. It's sitting here ticking while we're talking. Is there a point at time in the United States, and in Japan for that matter, where having something like this and going to the supermarket before you buy food is a good idea?
I think that these are instruments that are going to be commonplace, particularly in Japan. We're encouraging city councils, to actually develop a sister city kind of project so that you can send Geiger counters from your community to communities in Japan. That right now what we know is that Fukushima Daiichi has contaminated every prefecture in Japan with cesium-137.
Their seafood is going to be hitting our west coast any day now, and it could be in the restaurant down the street.
It certainly represents a concern now for the indefinite future that we have this bioaccumulation, biomagnification of radioactivity, strontium-90, cesium-137, that will happen. There are some 80 farms in Japan that have been taken out of rice production because the rice is excessively radioactive.
It's amazing. Paul, thanks so much.
Again,
for
no
dropping by.
nukes.
Yeah, no nukes, absolutely, and much appreciated the work that you're doing. Let's hope the world learns some lessons and doesn't ignore one of the worst ecological disasters ever. Time to ditch nuclear power, the most expensive and the most dangerous form of energy on Earth.